Hello everybody, Unchained. Recently, Games Workshop sent me a review copy of Lionel Johnston, and I painted him up in a quick, feverish pace, staying up till midnight a few nights. But there was a lot of thought and theory that went into this model, and in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about that. The painting is done, but what remains is the hopefully impactful impression. So before we get into some of the points I want to talk about, I want to remind you that in artwork there is no law. There are only suggestions. I'm going to be, commenting on how I accent the model's silhouette, my, color composition, all of that. These are just suggestions. I'm just sharing this because I want you to make informed decisions. You can choose to not follow any of these kind of imagination ingredients. You can just be aware of what you're leaving out. Great, there's going to be a lot of edits in this because I have things that I'd like to say. So first, consider the model's silhouette. The model is imagined just as a flat black shape against a white background. This might seem sort of abstract at first. It might resemble some kind of spiky butterfly, but if you look at just the model, just the figure in your hands, you'll kind of notice there's sort of a flow to the general outline of this model. Specifically in the case of Lionel Johnston, he has that kind of flowing cape, the sword sticking outwards. So I want to ask myself how I want to kind of accent the model's pose, or maybe present the model just standing on a flat plane. But yeah, I just want to consider what I'm doing with the negative space on this piece. And yeah, just generally a stairway makes him look very regal, and he's the Primarch and all that, so I guess placing him up high on even some ruined stairs, descending down like an angelic, vengeful force, that works well. But yeah, and I also wanted to add some kind of techie bits to the base and have some flowers sticking out of it. Again, just kind of that kind of glimmer of hope, angelic force thing. But anyways, the circles. Once I started building the base up, I wanted to build some kind of random tech, something blown out of the inside of a death robot of some kind. Who knows? But I ended up with this kind of large circular piece of scrap with these 4 bars protruding from it. I threw a gear on top of that, and then I was like, man, I like these circles. So it's very touch and go. But it started, kind of placing some of the circles around on the base and, kind of off to the sides and on the different steps. And then there's also the circle around his head. So it just kind of that circling pattern. I don't know, there isn't much thought to it. It kind of revealed itself to me later, but as I was playing around, I thought that was a really cool way to kind of play with the negative space. Next, once I have the silhouette and the base established, I want to ask myself how I would like to play with the temperature and also brightness. I want to consider cold areas versus warm areas and light areas versus dark areas. And you can see, playing around on this model, there's a very obvious choice with it's a weird choice, the blue leg. I just wanted to try to do something different. I think it's a very flat concept, if I was staring at an illustration, that blue leg would make more sense. As it rotates around, it looks a little out of place. I don't care. That's abstract, that's cool to me. But yeah, it's just something that I wanted to see on the model. And also, one of the more subtle things you don't notice is that the underside of the cape is all of those progressions include the color blue. It's so subtle you don't quite see it. It's just placed so naturally, that coldness laying in the shadows. You can see the coldness in all of the other shadows. The cape, it's very obvious. There's yellow in the highlights, there's blue mixed into the shadows, and it just makes a nice kind of rich, warm versus cold comparison. The armor has that going on too, aside from his blue leg, the upward facing highlights include yellow, whereas the downward facing highlights have none of it. And then you can see on the model's base there's a yellow spotlight underneath that blue foot, because I really wanted to separate the model from the base. I wanted a dark model on top of a dark base, which is usually against that, complement something dark with something light. So to pull that off, I gathered this yellow spotlight underneath the model's foot and kind of coming down the stairs in front of it. Yeah, I think that's nice. It looks a little funny again with the blue foot, but I like it more and more. I'm into this blue foot. Also at this stage, I'm considering my, I would describe it as color communication. If I place one color on the model, does it exist in any other areas? Can I, kind of triangulate this color to lead the eye around the model? The idea is you have red on the shield, the weapon, and the eyes. The viewer moves around between these three objects, and as their eyes travel across the model, they notice another color, and they start, tagging across the model, seeing the other colors, but resting on this very intense featuring color, the red eyes. That's where the attention is first grabbed, I think, the red sitting against all this cold darkness, and then you travel around the model and then come back to rest on the red. They also, generally the model is, dark green and blue. I wanted to pull some redness into the base, so you have this hull red kind of worked into the lower sections of this asphalt. There's some control going on. I wanted the model to really stand separately from the base. Again, look like this more kind of polished, clean object existing inside of something that's been destroyed. He's fresh. He's always fresh, right? And he's just stepping across this war-torn battlefield. So I left all of the color white doesn't exist on the base anywhere. My brightest highlight was maybe like I think I used a deck tan or something. And then on the model, I used my just tiny dots of bright white to, kind of produce that separation and, that kind of clean versus rough, dirty contrast, that kind of contrast of textures and materials. Fun stuff. And lastly, I want to talk about the psychology around the piece. No war is complete without the psychological battle. We play Warhammer, we know about this. But yeah, there's just, you look at the model and it has a mood. Talking about specifically about Lionel Johnston, it's the Dark Angels. They're moody, they're brooding, they have the secret, they have kind of this hidden quest to collect the fallen. Some of their brethren have turned to chaos. So there's a darkness that comes with them and some secrecy. The Dark Angels. So yeah, it worked very well. I think the model comes off still looking at like a good character, but also a very imposing, dominant Primarch figure. Also, like, Vashtor is on the prowl. With this new Chaos story arc, we have a machine demon, so having that wreckage, strewn around the battlefield, it kind of makes sense. Like, after the piece is done, ideas will start coming back at you, but, just consider the psychology and the mood that you're trying to create. I was in a movie once with Uncle Adam called Dead Weight. And one of the instructions I had never acted before, one of the instructions they gave to us was, moment before. Consider what you were doing the moment before you walked into this scene. That creates your mood. What kind of state of mind are you in? So when I look at a miniature, I think of it as a cinematic snapshot. It's a freeze frame of the ideal moment right when he's at the top of the stairs. I can take my picture whenever I want in the movie. But yeah, just considering the moment before and the moment after, and that the base is actually just a smaller puzzle piece of a larger diorama, being the battlefield in mass outside of what you're just seeing on this hole punch of Warhammer 40k. Yeah, that's pretty good. So again, I haven't said the word angel enough in the word cloud of this video. It would be gigantic. But considering he's an angel descending through the circles of hell and all these, I should have added 9 circles, right? I think I only pulled off 5, maybe 6 if you count his halo. But it does add to this kind of like celestial machinery. I like the way this resembles some kind of heavenly cogs in disarray. And then there he is standing at the middle of this kind of cosmic chaos, but also just a bunch of destruction on the battlefield. I don't know, there's kind of some superimposing images going on in my mind. But these are the things that entertain me when I'm looking at a model and thinking about the scene and the psychology, and ideas for how to paint come from all directions. So just consider what I've had to say and what I've shown you, and just throw it into your own mind, and if maybe one or two things stick in there, then good. I've got you thinking about painting. I could do this on every single model I paint. There's some different idea going into it, and you're going to see other artists paint this same model. It's a great figure, so I'm excited to see all the different versions and interpretations, and yeah, just looking at these pieces and reading the thoughts that went into it. So thank you for supporting this Patreon. As always, feel free to let me know how you feel in the comment section down below. Suggest some content you'd like to see. If there's anything you'd like to add, it's good to ask questions. We all learn more that way. So again, many thanks. Until I see you again, remain unchained. Hello everybody. Going smoothly.